You are listening to the 4-Phase Cycle Podcast with your hosts, Megan and Alex of Zesty Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you have come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, we use the 4 phases of the feminine cycle in combination with functional lab work to transform the lives of the women we work with. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own doctor before making changes. Ready to take control of your health? Let's get started.
Hi there, this is Alex, and also Whiskey the Bulldog is here. He's sitting, I think he thinks that he's a podcaster, and so he wanted to come sit up here. So I apologize for the dog snorting noises because, well, Whiskey's a bulldog, and if you have a bulldog, you know, they can't breathe so good. So he's got a little bit of a snoring problem. But anywho, we are back with our pod classes, all about all the different, for each of the hormones that we can get diagnoses about. We've been talking about cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, and now we are on the last one that we're going to cover, which is testosterone. Obviously, when you get Dutch testing and neurotransmitter testing, which is what we get, you are going to get much more information than this, but because so many women come to us that already have had some testing and we're told that they have something like low cortisol, high estrogen, low progesterone, which is kind of like the prototypical overwhelmed, overworked woman is, we wanted to, Megan and I, who's my partner, wanted to give you some tips and tools and explanations of each of the combinations. So for this one, we're going to talk about high testosterone, so testosterone excess, and then testosterone deficiency. And then just like we've been talking about in the other ones, we're going to talk about testosterone metabolism and metabolites that come out of it, which we see with the Dutch test. But this one is a little bit different, and so I'm going to reserve it as its own special little portion of the pod class. Okay, so just like we talked about in the previous ones, for testosterone excess, you could either be making too much of it or not getting enough of it, or not getting rid of enough of it. Okay, so that's, you know, a really easy way to imagine too much testosterone being around. So things like chronic stress, inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, insulin resistance, PCOS, along with insulin resistance, supplementation of toxin exposure, all of these things can lead to high testosterone. Then high testosterone in women will lead to a lot of unpleasant symptoms like facial hair, chest hair, acne, oily skin, greasy hair, hair loss, all of these things that because the female body just isn't used to or is not primed to respond to such high levels of testosterone. And so as you can imagine, all of these things can either fall into we make too much, so our body is like trying to ramp up certain pathways, or we're not getting rid of it enough and we just don't have the tools or the capabilities in our liver and with our nutrient sufficiency to get rid of the appropriate amount of testosterone. The really common thing that we end up hearing about in relation to high testosterone is PCOS and insulin resistance. So even though the standard picture of PCOS is always on top of our minds of kind of like overweight, high cortisol, acne, facial hair, insulin resistance. That whole picture, there's a certain body type that has been characterized for PCOS. However, there's more and more information now, which you may not have heard about, or maybe you have, is lean PCOS, which is basically women who are lean and don't look like they fit the PCOS mold, and many of them don't even have cystic ovaries in the classic way that it looks like for when PCOS was first discovered. There seems to be a type of thin, tall woman with, they tend to be very kind of thin hair, not a lot of body mass, not a lot of muscles, but they still have a lot of the insulin resistance that is characteristic of PCOS, and they also have a similar capability of issues when it comes to fertility, getting pregnant, staying pregnant, all of those things. And so those are a lot of the causes. And so what we can do about high progesterone is, high testosterone is, again, having the body be less on total overload state helps us not feed the pathway that creates testosterone. It's basically when we give ourselves time away from stressors, away from noise, away from other people, time to recuperate, time to rest, time to get lots of nutrients, then a lot of times that upregulation of testosterone creation gets shuttled into other things, such as creating progesterone so that you can sustain a pregnancy and all of those other really important things. So stress management ends up being huge, just like it was in progesterone deficiency. The other thing that can feed this is over exercising, and so asking your body to create more of a response than it can make. Having too many refined sugars and carbs will stress out your body in this way. Too much protein can create more testosterone to be made. And then avoiding soy, again, to not imbalance the conversion of estrogen to testosterone, which is called aromatization. So these are all things that we can do to impact high testosterone. But again, do keep in mind that whole interaction of what you think the world is like and the stress response that you feel on a daily basis that's chronic will feed into testosterone excess. Okay. And that can be really bad. And the other area of really that will be a heavy hitter is going to be for limiting or decreasing your sugar intake. So as much as I used to have a love for Swedish Fish and Sour Patch Kids and stuff, I try not to do that unless it's dire circumstances at work or something. I don't include any of those. I try not to. I try when I have a sweet tooth, I usually reach for fruit or make sure I'm hydrated or eat something with fats and proteins and then readdress if I really want that sugar. So things like that can make a huge impact because testosterone in women usually, when there's a problem with testosterone, it's usually a byproduct of something else going on, and that's feeding that imbalance. And so these two areas can be basically the bulk of what fixes testosterone because it has such wide implications for the entire endocrine system. All right, so that is that. And we're going to talk about testosterone deficiency next. So low testosterone is usually a cause of not having enough building blocks in the body around to create it. And so for that, we again want to incorporate cholesterol containing foods, whole healthy fats in our diet, minimize chronic stress, make sure we're getting enough nutrient density and variety, and then making sure that we are actually not overshooting on our blood sugar regulation. Because sometimes when your blood sugar dips too low, very often, sometimes that can cause a dysfunction in some women that leads to low testosterone. It's important to keep in mind that poor blood sugar regulation when it goes high can do the same thing as well. But I feel like there's a type of woman that when they bottom out and skip food, skip meals, do intermittent fasting, all of that stuff, seem to bottom out their testosterone quite a bit. All right, so that's testosterone deficiency, and let's head up to testosterone metabolism real quick, because there's two pathways testosterone metabolism can go. And if you take two women and they have both high testosterone on their blood work, when you get a Dutch test on them, they can fall into two different categories, and there is a testosterone alpha pathway and then a beta one. And one of the alpha pathway creates a type of testosterone metabolite that ends up causing more of the quote unquote manly symptoms women have. And so that is chest hair and acne and all of that stuff. The beta testosterone pathway, on the other hand, is actually a lot better. And so even though the overall amount of testosterone is still too high, maybe because of high stress, but if a woman is able to send testosterone down the beta pathway, then they won't have a lot of the systems that's a woman just like them having the same amount of stress, but they are shuttling it down the alpha reductase pathway, and it is going to lead, or more likely to lead, to symptoms, okay? And so if that's the case for you on your lab work or whatever you're using, or the Dutch test, then you can actually impact that. And things that can help you go down the better pathway if you're dealing with things like really bad cystic acne, hair loss, male pattern hair growth, all of the infertility, insulin dependence, all of those things. What you can do is incorporate things like green tea has a compound in it that is helpful, reishi mushrooms, rosemary, a coconut oil tablespoon before bed, and that does wonders. Ground flax seeds, which was also the case for estrogen. Pumpkin seeds, spearmint tea, saw palmetto, stinging nettle. All of these things, and this is by no means a comprehensive list, can help you create that pathway more easily to the better version until you address the causes of high testosterone to begin with. So this is an interim way of doing things, but unfortunately it's hard to know where you're at specifically without lab work, but it's a pretty good indication that if you're experiencing a lot of the PCOS symptoms that people generally associate with that, or just even in isolate, like just cystic acne or just unwanted hair growth or things like that, just infertility, quote unquote, just any of these, they can be really terrible to deal with. So it's not just anything, but if you're having that, then these are things that can help. But it is really ultimately helpful to have some testing so that you know exactly what you're dealing with, and exactly you can follow up to see that you actually have resolved the underlying chemical event, so that you can actually have long-lasting relief of symptoms and not just your acne goes away for a little bit and then it comes right back, which is a horrible thing to deal with. All right, so that was it for testosterone, and that's actually almost coming to the end of our podcast. I'm going to do one more to kind of wrap up all the loose ends and everything, and then that'll be it for this season. We hope to do a lot more, but if you're liking these or you've gotten a lot out of these, make sure to let us know so that we know to keep going with them. And then, of course, we're also looking for topics for following seasons, so make sure you get in touch with us, come find us, come talk to us, and we will get that on the docket because we love doing this kind of stuff. All right, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for stopping by this Podclass. If you are ready to dig deeper into your health, really understand your cycle, stop guessing with random supplements, and start testing, our Healthy Hormones group starts September 27th. You can find more details at zestyginger.com/healthy hormones and find out if this is the place for you. And as always, we offer free 20-minute consultations, so jump on the phone with us and we'll help you decide if it's a good fit.